The house on F Street was unassuming, a quiet, faded Victorian tucked away in the heart of Sacramento. Its blue-gray walls blended with the city's historic charm, and the white-trimmed windows gleamed in the California sun. From the outside, it was a home of warmth and shelter, a haven for those who had nowhere else to go. But behind its doors, behind the grandmotherly smile of its owner, lurked a darkness that festered in the soil of the backyard, a darkness that would take years to uncover. Dorothea Puente had a reputation as a generous soul. To those who passed her by, she was a benevolent landlady, offering a place to stay for the elderly, the disabled, and those down on their luck. She took in the forgotten, the castaways of society, providing them with home-cooked meals and a roof over their heads. Social workers praised her kindness. She dressed in soft pastel dresses, her silver-streaked hair neatly curled, the very image of a caring grandmother. But behind the lace curtains and the perfectly kept garden, she harbored a secret graveyard of deception and death. It was the smell that first raised questions, a putrid, sickly sweet odor that wafted through the neighborhood, sometimes stronger on humid days. Neighbors dismissed it as sewage trouble or an overworked garbage disposal. But the tenants inside the house on F Street whispered among themselves. Some noticed that certain residents seemed to vanish overnight. Others heard muffled arguments, the shuffle of hurried footsteps in the late hours. Then there were the stories about how checks meant for the dead still arrived, how Dorothea always seemed to have extra money despite running a home for the needy. One tenant, John Sharp, had grown particularly uneasy. He had seen it happen before. A fellow boarder, a frail woman named Everson Gilmoth, had simply disappeared. When he asked Dorothea about it, she had smiled warmly, patted his hand, and assured him she had moved to a better facility. But something in her voice, in the way her eyes gleamed just a little too brightly, had sent shivers down his spine. Then there was Bert Montoya, a mentally disabled man whom social workers had placed in Puente's care. Bert had the mind of a child and trusted Dorothea completely. But one day, he too was gone. When his caseworker Judy Moyes stopped by to check in, Dorothea claimed he had gone to Mexico to visit family. Judy knew this wasn't true. Bert had no family. She reported her concerns to the police. It wasn't until November 11th, 1988, that the truth began to surface. Detectives arrived at the house on F Street with questions about Bert Montoya's disappearance. Dorothea welcomed them with open arms, her voice calm, her movements practiced. She offered them tea, played the part of the worried caretaker. But something felt off. When officers asked to look around, she hesitated for the briefest of moments, a hesitation that did not go unnoticed. A detective wandered toward the backyard, where a neatly kept garden stretched across the lot. The air was thick, cloying with the scent of freshly turned earth. One officer kicked at a patch of loose soil near the back fence. Something pale and unnatural poked through the dirt. He bent down and brushed away more of the soil. What he found turned the air to ice. Within hours, a team of forensic investigators descended upon the property. They unearthed remains, one, then another, then another. The backyard, so carefully maintained, had become a cemetery for those who had unknowingly trusted the wrong hands. In total, 7 bodies were recovered, their identities traced to former tenants. Some were wrapped in bedsheets, others buried hastily, as though Puente had grown impatient with her own crimes. As police dug deeper, both figuratively and literally, they uncovered a pattern of deception that stretched back years. Puente had been collecting her victims' Social Security checks, forging their signatures, and cashing them long after they had disappeared. Some of her tenants had families who rarely checked in. Others had no one at all. They were perfect targets, people whose deaths wouldn't be questioned, whose absence could be easily explained away. She didn't kill impulsively. Puente was calculated, cold, and efficient. Toxicology reports suggested she used a mix of sleeping pills and tranquilizers to incapacitate her victims before suffocating them. Once dead, she buried them in her backyard, layering fresh soil and planting new flowers to mask the evidence. Each time a body was laid to rest beneath her feet, her bank account grew. Dorothea Puente did not wait to see how her story would end. As police combed through her property, she excused herself politely, claiming she needed a coffee break. Unbelievably, they let her go, not realizing the gravity of what they had uncovered. By the time they understood, she was gone. She fled to Los Angeles, blending into the crowd as she always had, using her grandmotherly disguise to evade capture. But her luck would not last. A sharp-eyed man at a local bar recognized her from news reports and tipped off the police. Just days after her escape, she was arrested. At her trial, Dorothea maintained her innocence. She was a caretaker, not a killer. Her tenants had died of natural causes, she insisted. But the evidence told another story. Toxicology reports suggested poisoning, and forensic evidence indicated suffocation. The prosecution painted her as a cold, calculated murderer who preyed on society's most vulnerable, draining them of their resources before disposing of them like garbage. In 1993, Dorothea Puente was convicted of 3 murders and sentenced to life in prison. Many believe she killed more, but the true number may never be known. She died behind bars in 2011, taking whatever secrets she still held with her. The house on F Street still stands, its walls silent witnesses to the horrors that unfolded within. Over the years, it has been restored, repainted, made new again, but the past lingers, whispering in the shadows. Visitors say the air feels heavy, as though the ground itself remembers what was buried beneath. Some claim to hear voices, to catch fleeting glimpses of figures in the upstairs windows. Whether haunted by spirits or simply by the weight of its own history, the house remains a monument to deception, to cruelty, and to the monstrous evil that once called it home. Dorothea Puente was a woman of many faces, a landlady, a grandmother, a murderer, and for years she walked among the unsuspecting, hiding death behind a smile. If you enjoyed this chilling true crime story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this.